requesting some insight into the Whitehat Scholarship Program, being able to talk to some of the Whitehat scholars and asking them some questions. So that's what we got drummed up for you today. We basically have a roundtable with a few Whitehat scholars from the Immunify program, and I will go ahead and introduce them to you in just shortly. So we'll go through with some of our normal housekeeping. So first things first, as usual, follow us on our socials, subscribe to our newsletter. I know you guys are already currently in our Discord right now, but don't forget to subscribe to our Telegram announcements channel. And then also our newsletter. You can subscribe to our newsletter at the bottom of our homepage of immunify.com. So since we last spoke, there's been a whole slew of bug bounties that were actually released. So if you go into the new bug bounties channel, which I will post here. Oops, I can't type. So if you go into the new bug bounties channel here, the past week has actually been fairly busy. So I think what was the last one that we released the last time? I think it might have been what is it? Let's say the 14th was last week. So we had one with Ghost Market, which was a $50,000 critical bounty, or $50,000 max bounty last week. Then we also had Beethoven X for 500K. Let me know if you guys want a specific. Also, I know again, like, these hangouts are for you guys. So if you guys want a specific project that I'm mentioning, or see one that is see one that's gone live and you want us to have them on a hacker hangout, or want us to bring them on to give you guys a little bit more insight and feedback in terms of what's happening, let me know. Especially, I know there's been a bigger demand on more of the bigger bounties. So for example, like, if you guys wanted Beethoven X on there, that's a $500,000 bounty. Aptos released a $1 million bounty. I know there was some last week. There were some requests to get Aptos on a hacker hangout to ask them some questions. Again, I think that's a huge addition to the Immunify ecosystem. So I will be speaking with them to get them on board. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, Mohammed. So we can go and grill them. I like that. Yeah, for sure. We'll try and get those bigger criticals on there with the bigger max bounties. So we'll try and go ahead and bring those guys on. And then who else do we have? So Aptos was the big one for last week with the $1 million bounty. They launched two, but I think they pulled one of them. I think it was the Move VM one. But the Aptos, the regular Aptos one, is still available. And then we can probably see that in the bug bounty program updates, where we'll do a quick recap in just a moment. And then also this week we started off with Arcade with the $300,000 max bounty. That was earlier this week. And we also had Insure DAO for a $50,000 max bounty, and X Carnival with 10,000. So that's wrapping up just the past week of bounties that have been launched since we last spoke, where you can essentially find the bug bounty program updates. I know I see some posts from I see a post from Pepin. You can find that in the bug bounty program updates. So I'll send the link here that you guys can take a look at. Again, the reason for this channel, I know a few people have pinged me privately about like what the bug bounty program updates is. So the reason for this channel is mainly to keep you guys updated with what's happening within the with the bug bounties that have been released. Therefore, you're not trying to figure out if any impacts in scope or assets in scope have changed. We're basically listing all the updates that are relevant, especially for these bug bounties on this channel. So within this past week, we see Open Zeppelin had some changes. Alchemix had some changes. Same with Olympus and Keeper. So some of the bigger bounty programs are having certain impacts and assets and scope change, but you guys can scroll through. There's just a lot that's kind of going on there. But you guys can scroll through. Let me see what else we got. Also, some other interesting things I know in terms of articles that we have released. So here's a few that released since we last spoke. This one being the basically a POC for a uranium finance heist that happened. So essentially, in this one, this I believe happened about a year and a half ago. So uranium finance, for those of you that don't know, is basically an AMM that's on BNB chain. And so this essentially was resulted in the loss of over $50 million worth of assets. I think it was across 26 different pairs. So there's a write up on how to build a POC for this specific exploit. The next thing that we pushed out was essentially the Aurora withdrawal logic error bug fix. So I'll push that one in the chat as well. And so with this, essentially about like a little over 50,000 ETH was vulnerable on the contract. I think at that time it was about like $63 million. And in this case, like Aurora paid out a bounty of $1 million, but in Aurora tokens. And this was, I believe, streamed over a year, but still a pretty big payday for the Whitehat. So you can kind of review the error plus what was fixed and what was, get a full recap there. And as usual, moving on, I like to go through some of the news and the cool things that are happening within the space, or interesting things that are happening in the space. I should say cool. Cool is a little bit too generic. So one of the big things that I came across that's interesting is essentially the Wintermute. So this just happened a few days ago. They were hacked for 160 million. Essentially, but according to the CEO, it didn't affect the lending and OTC operations too much, and that they were still solvent as an organization. But apparently, since the hack has happened, the hacker sent about $111 million worth of stablecoins to Curve's 3 pool, and I think the reason they did that was to avoid any of the funds being frozen by Tether and Circle. But it seems as if also I want to share this image, which I think is kind of funny. So Wintermute gave them 24 hours to essentially contact Wintermute and kind of return the funds. Trying to resolve this as peaceful as possible. Yeah, I'm not. Maybe it is the vanity address to be blamed. Could be that. But this kind of popped up on my radar, and it was interesting because I have been looking into the involvement. Personally, I've been looking into involvement of market makers within the space and kind of the effect that they have, or the impact that they have on the ecosystem and as a whole. And then the other one that kind of came across my desk, this one, funny enough, well, actually, no, that's pretty much it on my end. I thought I had another one. I was just going to repost the same link. But yeah, so that's basically. Oh, hey, Lukash. Okay, cool. I'll add you in a second. Where are you? Gosh. Nice. Doesn't even sort it out for me. Lukash, when you hop back in, just raise your hand, and I'll add you to the stage. Oh, there you are. Okay, cool. So awesome. So as usual, I know a lot of you guys. Oh yeah, Mohammed. I have it. I read about the GTA 6 hack. I think that's kind of it's a very interesting read. But to get things started, I know we allocated an hour for this, and I want to give our speakers a chance to hop in and talk and introduce themselves. But I want to welcome all the new people that have hopped in. If this is your first Hacker Hangout, welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's awesome to have new people. Just wanted to give you a rundown again of this specific Hacker Hangout. So today's Hacker Hangout is basically a nice roundtable that we have with some Whitehat scholars from Immunify's Whitehat Scholarship Program. I know you guys have been asking me and asking us about more information about them, some of their processes, how they approach, bug hunting in general, how they got started. And yeah, so hopefully they can provide you guys some really awesome insight in terms of getting started. Okay, yeah, Lukash, if you can just mute yourself for now. Awesome. So cool to get things started. Um, I guess if you guys want to hop on and introduce yourselves, either if you want to do it on voice, but since you guys are on, I mean, if you want to do it in the chat, feel free to. But since I have you guys on voice, feel free to give everybody a quick intro on your background and how you got started hunting bugs.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Justice,
This is
what's
your
up?
boy Chad Xerox Riptide. Hey man, thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me on the chat. And thanks again to Immunify for hosting, all these bugs. And also for hosting me as a Whitehat scholar. Back in end of March at ETH Denver is where I kicked it off with you guys. And basically, I mean, that gave me the fuel and the incentive to really push myself to make it happen and make it work. I mean, you're getting a stipend to look for bugs and try to break contracts. So even though I didn't know anything, I had some basic kind of JavaScript from the past, PHP, doing a little C++, but that was ages ago. So jumping back in the field was a big refresher to me. I didn't even know, I never used VS Code. I was an Emacs dude or Windows Notepad. So all my tools were dated. So coming back in was a big learning curve. And, shout out to my boy Bowtie Devil in the chat. Like I tweeted about his Substack really helped me get back in the fold, along with so many other resources, and especially a lot of the write-ups done by the Immunify team and all the other hackers here. Just you learn so much reading those and just seeing what's possible. But yeah, great to be on here, and any questions I'm open to.
Awesome, thanks so much, Lukash, or Lukash, since you unmuted yourself, putting you in the spotlight.
Okay, hello. So I'm Lucas Dev. That's my username. I've been coding most of my life. Since I was a kid, I worked as a web developer many years. And 2017, I started to get interested in crypto. 2018, I started making some contributions. I made some contributions to tests in Bitcoin Core. And there was a bug, a nasty inflation bug in Bitcoin Core, and that really got me interested in security. And I thought, whoa, Bitcoin Core has such a nasty bug. There must be bugs everywhere. So I started looking, and I started looking for bugs on projects that were on HackerOne, and got my first bounties in 2019. And then early 2021, in January, I think, Immunify reached out, and I started hacking on projects, the Immunify list. And later that same year, the guys offered me the scholarship, so I moved from doing it part-time to being a full-time bug hunter. And that's basically it. I love it.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Thanks for that intro, Lukash. I guess I'll hand it over to GM Hacker if you want to hop in and give us a quick intro. And yeah. Oh, not sure.
Oh, can you hear me
Yeah.
now?
Yep. Got you
Ah,
now.
I apologize.
It's
Hey,
all good.
thank you very much for having me here. Yeah. My name is Gonçalo, so okay. And I studied aerospace engineering, but before finishing my master's, I just started working as a software developer, um, mostly just to try and earn some money and just advance with my life. And started working with embedded systems, backend engineering mostly. I ended up finding out that it was a really nice career choice. I really liked it. Um, and yeah, eventually, I've always been very curious about basically just cryptography, security, those sort of aspects. Never had the chance to basically work professionally in that sort of environment. So that has been always a kind of a hobby. But eventually, some friends just pushed me into blockchain. I loved it, and specifically security, since I realized basically that people who were security oriented and able to find all these bugs, it seemed to me that these were the people that knew best about the technology fundamentals, and that's what I wanted, or that's what I want still. So yeah, I started working in blockchain eventually, developing smart contracts, and yeah, eventually got the chance to have this scholarship as well, which allowed me to just keep on researching a lot and putting out. I'm trying also, since I have this education background of lecturing IT. Um, I've tried using this time also to prepare some good content for devs. Um, Lecturing also web bootcamp, Web3 bootcamps for Web2 people, and trying my way out of basically hunting bugs. And yeah, it's been very fun, and I love it.
That's awesome. That's good. That's awesome to hear. So awesome. We've been starting to get some questions in the chat. So there's one that's for you, Justice. I'm gonna call you Chat Daddy DeFi, because of your profile pic. So so Penguin's asking about what has been your approach so far? Have you spent most of your time learning, or are you actively hunting? Are you specifically hunting, or are you doing both at the same time?
So thanks for the docs, Chris. Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to lay low from the NSA. My approach is pretty random. I think I used to have a career in banking and just kind of jump around from like one fire to the next, and I've always been good at that. And I do the same with hunting bugs. So like my approach is basically I read everything. Like I love doing what I do. I love just looking on Block Explorer and reading contracts because I'm just looking for those mistakes. And I'm curious how different developers implement different ideas. And it's not a pray and spray type of approach, but it's like, all right, I'll look at this compound fork and I'll look at the code through that. I don't care what chain it's on. I'll check it out, and then maybe I'll pull up another compound fork and just compare the code, VS Code, and look at any differences. Like, what did they do differently? How are they viewing these vulnerabilities versus the next guy versus their gas optimizer savings here? And then I'll take that and then I'll say, hey, I've seen this piece of code before, and then I'll jump to a totally different project and then pull that up and say, oh, this is this, and link that together. Or if I see like a Myrtle tree, then I recognize that elsewhere, and I'll jump around. I have probably I don't know, 200 projects cloned from their repos on my laptop that I just open everything up in VS Code sometimes and just do deep searches on different things and compare code bases. But my focus now is, and I think you should have a focus once you start learning how everything works. Some guys focus just on flash loan attacks. Some of the more quant guys might be really good at that. I like to focus on right now the cross-chain, the bridging, the cross-chain messaging. I think that's a really interesting area. I think there's a lot of holes there. And, I pinch myself with the Nomad thing and just some of the other code bases I looked at and didn't see the bugs in time, but they're all there, and those are honeypots. So for me, that's where I spend my time and focus right now.
Awesome, awesome. I appreciate that insight. I think that there's kind of like two questions, and this is for everybody on the panel here. And it's kind of like it's not really a two-part question, but basically, some people are asking about, what are some of the skills that would get them into the scholarship, and then also coupled with that is basically any advice that you guys have for people that are just starting in this field. I know, you just touched upon some of the stuff that you just in terms of like focus, but just in terms of like fundamentals, is there anything that you guys feel helps you stand out for the scholarship, but also helps you in essentially this role of hunting bugs?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, a few people are asking kind of two things that are related. So number one, what are some skills and fundamentals that you think gives you a leg up in the Whitehat Scholarship Program? And then also, like, what are some fundamentals or things that you think are important for those that are just starting out in this space?
Got it. Should I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, I'm not an absolute expert at all, but I'll only respond because you're asking, right? But specifically, also since I'm lecturing here in the space, and I also have this experience of basically having to lecture very small Solidity courses to non-crypto people, and in another approach, lecturing a whole bootcamp, passing on through the fundamentals, and later ending in Solidity, security, etc. And the difference is just astonishing. So one cannot just know Solidity, basically. So I think that's a very important thing to take into account. You have to really wrap your mind around this whole new environment. And for me specifically, once I properly understood the fundamentals of the EVM, basically how the Solidity would transition, basically would be compiled into the bytecode, what the EVM would do with that bytecode. I know this is more advanced stuff, but that really helped me a lot. Basically looking at the Solidity code and understanding what was happening in storage, what was happening all around. So yeah, that was pretty helpful for me. I'll leave other tips to the other two white hats here.
Yeah, I'd just say a deep understanding of technical knowledge in computers and curiosity. I think any white hat who's going to be good is going to be deeply curious and so motivated that you can go for 5-6 months and not earn a dime, but you're learning like crazy, and it becomes a rabbit hole. And if you don't have that drive for curiosity, if you're just thinking about, oh, I want to get paid, I don't think you're going to make it. You really have to like it. You really have to be a total nerd. You have to dive deep, into the bytecode. You got to understand just so much. There's so many layers to the EVM that's so fascinating, and there's so many big brains developing in this space. It's just so cool. So I would just say people that will succeed in the program will be naturally curious, a technician, and really a will to never quit.
Yeah, I'll
Lucas,
add to that.
yeah, Lucas, if you want to add to that,
Sorry,
go ahead.
yeah, I'd add to that. I totally agree with what both said. Uh, I would just like to add that this space is called crypto for a reason, or some people call it crypto for a reason, and I think a very solid understanding of the fundamentals of cryptography. You don't need to be able to prove theorems or stuff like that necessarily, though that might help eventually. Uh, but you need a very solid, like, black box understanding of the cryptographic primitives. If hash functions, signatures, Merkle trees, and stuff like that are in any way mysterious to you, invest some time learning it, because uh, you're gonna see it all the time, and if it's in any way mysterious, you're not gonna be able to spot issues. And I also like the uh, deep dive in the EVM and assembly stuff they mentioned. Of course, this is all for smart contracts. There's a whole lot of other things around cross-chain network protocols, layer one implementations, VM implementations, and stuff like that. That we have seen lots of huge bounties around. So this is like a whole different world. But if you dive deeper in those things, you'll probably be able to find stuff most people are not even looking for. That's my
Very nice.
I like that. Also, nicely summarized. I guess it's kind of more of a clarification to. I would assume it's one of your tweets. Riptide is so Pangolin is asking for more clarification or also a brief explanation because in your tweet you wrote this: when you stumble upon an uninitialized address variable in Solidity, you should always take a moment to pause and investigate further because you never know if it was purposely left uninitialized or by accident. I guess, would you mind providing a little bit more insight or clarification in terms of the meaning behind this statement?
Yeah, sure. It's like you're a detective when you're checking the chain. You're just looking for anything that seems irregular. And one of those things to me are, if I run a zero address just on Etherscan, pull something up and just query a bit with say the zero address, and then a function comes out as true or false or something, and other functions don't do that. An address with an actual valid address. Then okay, maybe there's something here, and you dive into code, you look around. But if you see a contract, especially a proxy that has some sort of address variable that's all zeros, it's null, you have to just stop and say, well, was this intended by the devs or not? And so you dive in, look in the code, and with the recent hack, I looked in the code and I saw, hey, this should have been initialized upon calling the initialized function, and it wasn't. And then you had this other variable that was set that was initialized as part of that function. And so then you start diving deeper and you're like, what the hell's going on here? But it's like, a lot of this is chance. Like, you can increase your chances by just reading as many contracts as you can and having an idea what you're looking for. But there's chance to it too. I mean, you can't deny that. So you never know where you'll step on something. So I like to investigate every clue that I come across. I don't care how long it takes. I dive into anything that looks suspicious.
Awesome. Hopefully, Pangolin, hopefully that provides you with some insight in terms of, or that clarification for that that statement. Let me see what else we got. This is an interesting one. So UT Karsh, wait, let me make sure. Yeah, so UT Karsh asked a quick question in terms of uh, level of coding or programming skill. He wanted to know if there's one when you're hunting for bugs, does one need to be exceptional at coding for one to get at the same level, or being able to read and understand a small piece of code would suffice? So I'm assuming he's asking whether or not you need to be a very, like a top tier coder, very well rounded, or actually I can kind of answer this because like this is something that's been asked before at UT Karsha. So I can take the lead on this. Like most of the time, like for a lot of the white hats within the community, it's not just like the general or the misconception is that in order for you to hunt bugs or for you to find criticals, like you have to be this savant of a coder, right? That you have to be like a top tier auditor and really one of the best coders in the space. It's actually not necessarily true. Like I stated before previously, we have people that find vulnerabilities of different levels. Like we've gotten like high school students, we've gotten people that have been in the space for a long time. We've got college students as well, or people that don't have that much experience. So you don't really have to be this top tier programmer or dev to be able to be successful in this space. And the amount of submissions that happen daily, like I see that that's always not the case. That it's people of all different skill levels, whether or not they're really really good or they've just they're kind of at an intermediate level. It's just the understanding of what's happening with the language. Let's see what else we got. So hopefully that answers that. I got one question that I'll go ahead and ask. This is a question to all you guys up here on the panel. Would you guys be able to individually each give a brief overview of your tooling as well as its function? This question is being asked by Mohammed. So some insight in terms of what you guys used and for what specifically.
Shout out to Mohammed, the hardest hacker in the space in the Immunified Discord. I'd say my tooling is everything, man. Just like probably just like you, Mohammed. Like I use all the Foundry tools. Cast is amazing. Tenderly, I've gotten so lazy with Tenderly. It's just what an amazing tool. Just to run quick tests on. I still use Hardhat. I started using Foundry since I saw you guys using it. It's actually pretty cool. Block Explorers. And then I also use Echidna for fuzzing. And no valid hits on that yet, but learned how to use it. And that's a really cool tool to have in your back pocket. And these are all free, which is great. Yeah, other than that, nothing special that I can think of. Just any tool that I could use.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I guess not much of creativity on my side as well. I think also just manually auditing the contracts, it's underrated. So I think that's a very important part, just that. And yeah, just like VS Code, Foundry, always trying to, every time I have this idea of exploiting something, just running a fork locally and doing a quick POC and checking that out. A lot of Etherscan as well. I like that Etherscan feature of putting the .deth.net, which opens like a VS Code with the contracts on Etherscan. That's pretty nice to organize those contracts. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Lukash, if you want to chime in here, we'd love to know your setup.
Sorry. Nothing much else. I mostly use for smart contracts, hard hat and local forks. And in terms of editors and stuff like that, it's mostly Nano in the console and grep for searching things. And most of the time, I'm just looking at the browser at Etherscan or GitHub. That's most of my time.
Oh, one more piece of alpha there. I don't use Slither as it is because I don't think that's really a vector. A lot of times everyone uses it, but I use Slither's. A lot of their capabilities are really cool. Like you could print variable order, and you could read the values too from there. And also you could do this with Sol-C. You could look at the variable order and just if you want to look at a contract storage, it's one of the best methods.
Awesome. Cool. Hopefully that kind of gives. I know the chat's been kind of moving fairly fast in terms of different tools that everybody's been finding as useful. I know Xerox Taylor was recommending Mythrol for fuzzing. I know that's been mentioned a few times in the past calls because it's a little bit more extensive than Foundry. So awesome again, another awesome suggestion here. Let's see what else we got. It's kind of moving. Penguin, I think you're the only one that uses Brownie. I'm just kidding. So Hacker Baya, nice to see you back on here. Let's see what we got. So this is kind of this is another one from UT Karsh, which is basically what methodology do you follow while hunting bugs in the space? The tools might change over time, but the methodology is usually here to stay. That's actually a good question. What's your guys' methodology or process when you guys are hunting bugs in the space?
At least I myself still don't have a lot of experience, so also don't have a strict methodology. I guess kind of like Riptide mentioned, I sort of jump around through lots of things as well. Sometimes I stick to a project, especially if it's a big project, and really go through that rabbit hole, basically trying to understand every single detail. But that takes a lot of time. So sometimes in the middle of that process, I just remember it would be interesting to search for a specific kind of bug. So let's say like, yeah, now I'm just going to check whether this sort of, I don't know, proxy bug or something is present in any of those projects that are listed on Immunify. So I just go and check all of them or most of them until I get tired and resume my kind of auditing of the bigger project. So yeah, I still don't have a strict methodology.
That methodology sounds just like mine, except I never get tired.
Nice.
No, serious. That's actually really good. You sound exactly like what I'm doing. One thing I do, like you were saying, if I really want to dive into a project, I think a key tool you should have, because we have so many distractions, is just get an Epson intake printer. And it's a Keller printer that lasts forever. And I just print double side, I'll print the whole code base. And I'll just sit there, I'll staple everything together, I'll go to a library, and I'll study that thing for hours. And what it lets you do is once you have enough experience to not have to look anything up, you could just go through the whole code and all the logic, and it allows you to focus and really spot things and just mark it all up and say, hey, is this a vector here? Is this a vector here? And then you take all that back and you take it back to the computer and you have a list on what you're actually going to check. Instead of, if you do that on VS Code, it's so easy to get lost and jump around, get distracted, and you might miss something. So I think the printing, the old school approach is actually pretty helpful.
That's awesome. I had never heard of such a method, but yeah, I
Alpha
totally
drop.
I totally feel also those sort of the more I try and hunt for bugs, I also get the sense that this sort of don't know if like temperament skills or something, like you really need to have a lot of patience and just strive when it doesn't feel like doing that, and yeah, that laser eye focus basically.
For myself, it's a lot different. I just keep switching between looking at different random things more superficially, and eventually I'll get obsessed about one project, and then I work on it, trying to understand every single thing for depends, a day, 2, a week, a month, depends on how interesting it is. Two things that I like to do is, one, try every morning when I'm not super obsessed about a specific project to check for new bounties and just do a quick look for patterns that I know in those projects. And the other thing is I keep a journal. I kind of, everything that I think that's interesting, it doesn't matter if I am pursuing it right now or not, I write down. So I have like several pages of like random thoughts on different projects every day. And normally I don't go back to it. But at least it helps knowing that you kept you have a base of stuff that you can look back, and every now and then it pays off.
Nice, awesome. Thank you guys for giving us some insight in terms of some of your process. I know the printer one's definitely old school, but I think it's a good practice. I think it's something that's unique. And I know a lot of people right now, or at least there's been a little bit of a push, because usually in these hacker hangouts, I do get a lot of questions about automated tools, and whether or not that helps you. I'm sure a lot of these tools are basically tools. They're there to help. And the one thing that I do want to mention is like HackerBio just wrote something interesting saying that, yeah, you can also write your own tool to automate, automate bug hunting to a point that accommodates your strategy. And that's exactly what DDoP does. They have their own custom software that they run. Not sure how public it is, but I know they run their own custom software and they change it. And Giannis has told us in the past Hacker Hangout that they change it fairly frequently to adjust to the market and certain things that are happening within essentially the DeFi space or smart contracts in general. So it's kind of its own living, breathing animal. Let's see what else we got. So this is another one. So this is another one that I want to bring up for you guys, which is when you guys are hunting for bug bounties using Immunify, what do you go to first? The newest, the highest paid, or something that's the most familiar?
Most complicated, highest paid.
Man, you're just going right into the deep end there.
I usually try and go to not a very old one. Yeah, at least got to be somewhat recent.
Yeah, like I said, I try to look at every new bounty. Uh, Sometimes I skip a few, at least a quick look, and if it is, if it has enough surface, uh, I mean, if it's too simple and too small, I just quick look and then forget about it. And if it's offering very high bounties, I probably will go back to it a number of times. Um, so I try to do both ways, like both orderings, from newest to oldest, and from highest paying to lowest paying.
Awesome, awesome. I got another question from Rootsploit. So he says, for someone like me that comes from Web 2 security with basics of Brownie and Solidity code review, what are different resources for learning about DeFi concepts like loan types, bridges, and specific DeFi related bugs found recently on Immunify?
Man, I would just say read past audit reports. Those are fantastic. Those guys are really good, and they really go in depth, and they show you just it's just about how well can you understand how these smart contracts work. That's all it comes down to. It's not, it's very similar to JavaScript. So that's the bridge from the Web 2 world. If you know JavaScript, I mean, it's literally not that different. And just everything's free, man. Like you could just find every resource imaginable. Just about, do you have the dedication to dive deep enough?
Uh, that if you are familiar and comfortable reading code, uh, if you are reviewing JavaScript code a lot, for instance, uh, just reading code will teach you a lot. Just going to libraries and sometimes even implementation. If you are unsure how something works, uh, everything is open source. So you can find the code for everything and you can just look at the code. This might be more time consuming than just Googling for the answer. But sometimes you'll find stuff that other people don't know much about. So that's maybe a harder way to learn, but I think it pays off in the end.
Awesome, awesome. That definitely makes sense. I just a quick follow. There's a quick follow up to one of the last question because I just saw it right now, and since it's still fresh in terms of hunting or picking specific bug bounties to go after on Immunify. So Pangolin asked a follow up question here, which is why don't you guys go and search on some of the older bug bounty programs? Is there a specific reason why you don't? Why, like for example, like there's a certain like past 6 months, for example, you guys don't look at bug bounties that are that old. Is there any specific reasons why?
I do look at older projects. Some because I started looking at them months ago, and then I just going back to them every now and then because I like them. And others just because I think other people don't. So I might find stuff that people are not looking for. But I think the main reasons for not looking at older bug bounties is that it's likely most of the easiest bugs or the most critical bugs have already been found. And there is a problem also with financials. The project might not actually have that money or not be, I don't know, not be financially healthy as they were when they launched the bounty. Happens sometime. That said, my highest paying bounty was in a almost year-old program. So never know.
Yeah, I don't look at much old bounties. Honestly, I haven't had just a lot of time to search for them. As again, I'm still fresh, but yeah, I just thought of which ones I will choose, and I just chose the earlier ones. I guess for kind of that reason, maybe weren't as looked as the other ones, but maybe it's exactly the opposite way because other people think the same thing. So yeah, I just chose the earlier ones, I guess.
No, that's good. Good to kind of hear that from you guys. I got another question from Pangolin. This kind of is to everybody here on the panel is basically how long have you guys spent transitioning from what you were doing previously into hunting bugs? And how long did it take until you actually found your first bug? Doesn't matter what the severity was.
Let's see. I in my tweets, I was a DeFi DGen, full DeFi DGen, putting a bunch of money in contracts I didn't understand, and then I transitioned over to bug hunting. And you know, what gets me, man, is my first bug was with X token, and it was very small, but it was after probably like 2 months, and what that did was validate to me that hey, I could do this, even though it was small. It was nothing really big, but they rewarded me. I said, "Hey, I got paid from this. This is really cool. Uh, I'm going to keep doing it." But during those first few months, man, I looked at the Rary code base and I didn't know what I was looking for, and I missed that obvious reentrancy that got exploited. Like things like that. In the beginning, you're going to miss a lot of bugs because you just don't know what to look for yet. But the transition took, I feel like I'm a pretty well seasoned guy, and it took me 6 months of 7 days a week doing this.
GM or Lucas, you want to chime in here?
Sure. For myself, I had been like looking at security stuff in crypto for several months. But then when I decided to specifically hunt for bugs for reporting, it took me about a month. I was quite lucky. Uh, and this was early 2019. And then I switched to full time in 2021. So about 2 years and a few months. Uh, yeah, some time.
Yeah, on my end, well, I'm on this scholarship for like 2 months, and I started hunting bugs just right away. But really, like, yeah, let's understand everything, earn a lot of cash right away. But eventually understood that I needed patience. But right away, I decided to order my time for these 3 months, which is basically my scholarship. So basically, it was a very low percentage of hunting and a lot of just researching and reading. And these last months that I'm now entering is where basically, well, also these previous weeks, where the weight is basically shifting like 80 to 90% hunting. And yeah, so basically that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for that insight. I know we're coming up on some time, so I'll give everybody a last call for questions while I address Leonardo's question. So he asked some of the projects for which critical bounties have been found are still unimmunified. Would I be correct in saying that those projects would pay a bounty again if another critical bounty was found? That is correct. So usually we leave it up to the project on whether or not they want to leave that bounty up. Most of the time they do. So if there's, for example, not one but two criticals that are found, usually that bounty is still in play unless otherwise noted, or unless it's changed within the bug bounty program updates. Let's see. Yeah. So hopefully you guys have been getting some awesome insight here. This is rare. We haven't done this before. And you guys are getting some nice little alpha here. Let's see what else. Okay, so another question from Leonardo, for all you guys is, aside from technical skill set, have you guys also focused on report writing for your submissions? Is this something that you recommend to new people in the field? And is there a certain structure that you follow for your report submissions? Good question, by the way.
I would say be clear, concise, and to the point, and keep everything professional. Zero out any emotional response you have to the team, to the code, to the bounty, whatever. Zero all that out and take it from a strict professional viewpoint. Outline all facts, keep it completely objective, and I think that's always led me down the right path with these submissions.
I think that's good advice. Also, I don't think there's kind of a reason to rush as soon as you just find or think that something is a bug. I think that you really should, first of all, really make sure that's a bug, it's in the scope, etc. And then the report should be pretty straightforward that, yeah, that's a bug and that's inside that scope. And not like a writing where you're trying to convince that the bug is a bug or should be in the scope or something.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think if you are struggling with it, maybe reading write-ups also helps with that. Just keeping in mind that your report is probably going to be shorter and more concise and to the point than a write-up that someone posts on Medium or something like that. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But don't miss anything. Like if there are facts that help you, write it down. Don't leave stuff out that might be important to make your point. Just try not to be too wordy. I struggle with that sometimes. I write too much.
Awesome. I think one of the things that I've gotten from these bug reports is essentially be detailed as much as possible and be clear with your explanations. Examples, pictures, and diagrams also being helpful. I think is a key part of these things. And so again, like it's not necessarily writing more, or writing less, or being the first or being the fastest. It's also the quality of the report that's important here. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when you guys are moving forward with this.
Hey, Chris, I got to bounce. Sorry, guys. Everyone, hey, thanks for having me on. Just leave everyone with a few thoughts. Solidity's not at version 1 yet. This is all an experiment. Immunify is an experiment. Be thankful to be a part of this crazy experiment. We're all in, and you could pen test 24 hours a day in your pajamas from your couch. So with that, I wish everyone best of luck. Thanks.
Awesome, and thank you guys for hopping on.
Thanks.
Up on the top, we're at the top of the hour. So thank you all. Thank you guys. If you guys got any more questions, you guys can reach out to these guys individually. Thank you, Lukash Dev, Riptide, and GM Hacker for hopping on for today's Hacker Hangout. It's been awesome. Hopefully everybody in the audience got some really great insight here. And yeah, if you guys got any further questions, you guys can hit them up. Individually, I apologize for not getting to all the questions. It was just maybe we'll do this again. We'll definitely do this again. The response was really good here, and hopefully you guys got some really awesome insight. And we got some cool stuff coming in the upcoming Hacker Hangouts, and stay tuned. I can stick around and see if I can answer any more questions that you guys have. Moving forward. So as long as it's not super technical. Let's see. Fubear, actually I can answer this one. I know you asked about if there's an intermixing of auditing contracts and bug hunting, parallel, or is it a day job or a contract? So there usually, so you got two camps. You got one camp where it is guys that just do bug hunting specifically, and then you also have the other camp where you do have guys that have other jobs. Like for example, there's a few founders that bug hunt on the side. There's a few auditors that also bug hunt on the side individually. So it depends. So it's really up to essentially your individual bandwidth and what you really want to focus on. UT Cars would love to have a session with the White Hats talking about their favorite bugs. Ooh, that's interesting. That's a good suggestion. I like that one too. Duplicates. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get. I think that was asked also prior. I forgot that I to ask that one, so I apologize for that. Awesome. Today was great. What do I do personally for Immunify? So a big bulk of what I do, Harook's, is launches. So I coordinate a lot of the launches going live and making sure that the information that gets to you guys is accurate, and that you guys essentially get notified about any launches that are happening. I also coordinate these hacker hangouts and been trying to trying to essentially tailor these to what you guys want. So a feedback that comes my way, I write them all down and I see what is essentially the lowest hanging fruit and what I can take care of the most. So we got some good things that are coming in the next few weeks. How long have I been with Immunify? Let's see. Geez. Unofficially, I think almost a year. But I think officially, I forgot now, maybe about 6 months. I was initially a contractor with Immunify prior to being hopping on board full time. Yeah, Leonardo. Launches as in new bug bounties. That's correct. So awesome. I'll leave this open for a little bit longer. I'll probably just hang out in the chat in the next few minutes. Actually, funny enough, I'm also working on a launch at the same time as I'm talking with you guys. So I'm multitasking here, but it's for you guys. Again, like these community events are for you guys. So any feedback that you have for myself, for us, what you want to see, let us know. I mean, we take everything into account. We want these events to be for you. And you guys want insight on something specific, let us know. You want a project that you want to speak to or ask questions for, let us know. And we'll see if we can make that happen.
Thank you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Lukash Dev. GM Hacker, you guys are free to go.
Okay.
Thank you guys for hopping on. Appreciate it so much. You guys did awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for hopping on.
Okay. Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Yep, guys.